Hi guys, today we're going to be solving multi-step equations, okay? So previously you've been solving just plain old one-step equations. So how you solved a one-step equation is you just added or subtracted or multiplied or divided one number to both sides to get a variable out by itself. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be solving equations that look like this, where you have more than one thing on both sides. So what we're going to do first, and I hope you have your note taker ready to go, is you're going to be filling in some blanks on first how to do it. And then we're going to have that note taker ready by us. And I have a little acronym also for you guys to help you to remember the steps of how to do this. And we can practice doing a couple of problems. Alrighty, so guys, the first thing we're going to do, it says if needed, blank one or both sides of the equation. And that blank we're going to fill in with is simplify. Simplify one or both sides of the equation. So that means if there are some like terms that we have to combine, or there's distributive property, if there's like a couple x's on one side of the equation, you have to simplify those together first before we can start moving things around. So here we go, combine like terms. Okay, so that's where you get rid of any distributive property and combining like terms. Then your second step is you're going to eliminate any type of addition or subtraction by using inverse operations. And then finally, you're going to eliminate multiplication and division. Oh, come on, division sign. There it is. By using inverse operations. Okay, so the little acronym that I like to use for this is don't call me after midnight. Okay. So, what does that stand for? And you can see it right here. Don't call me after midnight. So, distribute first for the D, combine like terms for the C, move your variable. And we won't really see that too much today, but in the future we will. Add or subtract, we'll see that a bunch today, and multiply or divide. So these are all the big steps that we're going to see a bunch today for the adding and subtracting, the multiplying or dividing, okay? But in the future, we're going to see all of these steps. So that's why I kind of threw it in there today, okay? Alrighty, so for our first step, we're going to look at this equation. Our goal is still to get the x by itself. So I'm going to draw that line down the middle to keep the left-hand side down from the right-hand side, okay? Our goal is still to get x by itself. And I see that on the side that has the x, there's a 3 there and there's an 8 there. What I want you to do right now on your computer screen is I want you to cover up that 3. And if you cover up that 3, this really looks like the same kind of problems that you solved to this point. It kind of looks like x plus 8 equals 35. If we go through our little checklist here, we don't have any distributive property, so I'm going to cross that one out. We don't have any like terms. I'm going to cross that out. We don't have variables on both sides, so I'm not going to worry about that. Okay, so these guys are all gone. All right, so we're going to start our process here whereby we're going to be adding or subtracting something to both sides. And if I asked you to cover up that 3, then you can see the kind of problem looks like. It looks like we have x plus 8 equals 35. So how do we get rid of adding 8 to both sides? You're going to subtract 8 to both sides. So let's subtract 8 to both sides. All right, when you subtract 8 to both sides, remember this 8 goes away. All right, and what do you have left? You have a 3x, so write down 3x. Write down your equal sign, and then what's 35 minus 8? It's going to give you 27. Okay, so we did this step right here on our checklist. Okay, now what operation is in between the 3 and the x that's preventing that x from being all by itself? A multiplication sign, right? So how do you get rid of multiplication? Opposite would be division, right? So you're going to divide both sides by 3. So I'm on to this step. All right, so if I do that, I'm going to get my x all by itself. And what's 27 divided by 3? 9. Okay, now Sorry, my 9 is not so pretty. There we go. All right, so how are we going to check to see if our answer makes sense? Well, you can plug it in. All right, if you go up here to the top, the original problem was 3 times your unknown plus 8, right? So 3 times 9 is 27, right? Plus 8, that gives me 35. So I found the right answer. So we're good to go. All right, so I'm going to erase my little check marks on here. Okay, same process, new problem. Okay, I'm going to draw a line down the middle to keep my left-hand side and my right-hand side. Okay, all right, so if I look at my checklist here, it looks like I don't have any distributive property because there's no parentheses. I don't have any like terms because there's no other x's in the problem. So I can wipe out this one too because I don't see any variables over there. All right, so now what I'm going to do, I got to look on that side that has the variable. There's a 4 underneath it and a -5 over there. If I cover up that 4 that's attached to the x, the problem's real easy, right? It's x minus 5 equals -7. So if I look and see what's next on my checklist says I have to get rid of any type of adding or subtracting first. So that means I'm going to get rid of the subtracting by 5. So how do you get rid of subtracting by 5? You add 5 to both sides. We're going to add 5 to both sides. All right, when we do that, 5's over here get rid of. All right, we have -7 plus 5, which is going to be -2. All right, on this side, I have x over 4, and I have equals -2. Okay, so I did this step in our checklist. All right, now if I look at my next step in the checklist, I have to get rid of any type of multiplication or division. So how do I get rid of dividing by 4? I have to multiply by 4 to both sides. So I'm going to do that part right now. So I'm going to times by 4. That's my multiplication dot to both sides. All right, then I'm going to get x equals, well, -2 times 4. That's going to get me -8. All right, and again, I can check to see if that kind of makes sense. It was the unknown divided by 4 minus 5 had to equal -7. So the unknown I found to be -8. So -8 divided by 4, that was -2. -2 minus 5, that equals -7. So I'm in business. All right, so let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so I'm going to rewrite this problem just because that 3x over 4 plus 2 equals -1 kind of looks a little bit weird, and I'm afraid that it might like throw some of you guys off. So I'm going to rewrite it, and I want you guys to rewrite it in your notes. So I'm going to rewrite it as 3/4 x plus 2 equals -1. And I'm going to draw that line. All right. The reason why I did that is because the 3x over 4 part kind of made it look like I have like these extra things going on here, but it's really just a fraction that's attached to the x. So if I pull that out, now it kind of looks like the other problems that I've done so far. So if I go through my checklist, I don't see any parentheses, so I'm going to cross that guy out. I don't see any other x's in the problem, so that wipes these guys out. All right, so now I'm on to this step. So I have to get rid of any type of adding or subtracting. All right, so to do that, I'm going to cover up the 3/4 with my hand. All right, and the problem really looks like x plus 2 equals -1. So how do you get rid of adding 2? You subtract 2. Okay, going to rewrite what I have left over. So I have 3/4 x equals -3 when I simplify on the other side. Okay, I did that step here. All right, now I need to get rid of that 3/4. So remember, the best thing to say is to not divide by 3/4, but to multiply by the reciprocal, right? Are we still going to get the same answer? You bet. But to really impress your math teacher, you're going to say multiply by the reciprocal. Okay, so here we go. All right. You will still get the same answer if you say divide by 3/4 also. All right, so if I divide both sides by, or I'm sorry, multiply both sides by 4/3, I'm going to come up with my answer. And my answer to this problem is going to be -4. Okay? And again, I followed my checklist. All right, I'm going to start over again. Okay, now this one looks a little bit different. All right, you might be thinking to yourself, this one already looks different because I've got some extra X's in the problem. Well, good thing I have this little handy dandy checklist because now that I have this checklist, I can go through it and make sure that I'm not making any mistakes anywhere. So, don't call me after midnight. Well, distributive property, I don't see any parentheses, so I'm going to get rid of that part. But I do see a couple X's on the left-hand side that I could probably combine before I start doing anything. And this would be your 10x and your minus 3x. All right, so what's 10x minus 3x? That's going to give you 7x. And then the only thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rewrite the rest of the problem. So minus 20 equals 1. Okay, so I actually did that step. All right, I don't see a variable on the other side of the problem, so we don't have to worry about that one. Okay, but if I cover up that 7 that's in front of the x, I do see something that I might need to get rid of through addition or subtraction. So how do you get rid of that minus 20? You're going to add 20 to both sides. All right, so if I do that, what am I left over with? 7x equals 21. So I did this step. Okay, now my next step says I've got to multiply or divide something to get x by itself. So remember, there's multiplication that's hiding in between the 7 and the x. So how do I get rid of the multiplying by 7? You divide both sides by 7. So your answer is going to be x equals 3. So I did the last thing in the checklist. Okay, so how to check to see if your answer kind of makes sense. If you go up here even to this step right here, 7 times your answer minus 20 would have to equal 1. 7 times your answer, that's 7 times 3, which is 21. 21 minus 20 equals 1. Boom. I got the right answer. Okay, so you can always go up somewhere into your equation to see if you found something that makes sense. All right, stepping up the difficulty a little bit. But I've got my handy dandy checklist, so it's not going to give me a problem, right? Because you're not going to call me after midnight, right? Don't call me after midnight. Okay, so this time I do see those parentheses. So I am going to be really relying on this little checklist to help me out. Okay, so draw the line. Okay, so don't call me after midnight. Distributive property. I see those parentheses in the problem. Okay, so that means I've got to take care of distributive property first before I start moving anything around. So I'm going to take that 2. And remember from before when we learned, you take whatever's on the outside of the set of parentheses and you multiply it to whatever's on the inside of the set of parentheses. So 2 times 2x is going to give me 4x. 2 times 9 is going to give me 18. And then I am going to rewrite everything else. So minus x, and then I'm going to write down that minus 15 on the other side, and then write down the equal sign. Okay, I did the distributive property, so I'm going to put a little check mark next to it. Okay, next, do I have any like terms? So do I have any variables that are exactly the same that I could put together? You bet. I have a 4x here, and I have a minus 1x right here. So 4x minus 1x is going to give me 3x's. And then I'm going to rewrite everything else. So 3x plus 18 equals negative 15. Okay, so I did this step. All right, now I don't see a variable over there with my negative 15, so I don't have to worry about that step. But On the side that has the x, I do see a 3 stuck with it, and I see an 18 stuck with it. So I know I got to get rid of adding or subtracting first. So I'm going to get rid of that plus 18 by subtracting 18 to both sides. All right, if I subtract 18 to both sides, I'm going to end up with negative 33 equals 3x. Okay, last step on my checklist is I have to multiply or divide something. So I'm going to get rid of that 3 that's with the x. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I'm going to get x equals negative 11. Okay, and real quick, just to make sure you followed that process, if I'm following my checklist for don't call me after midnight, first thing I did is I saw there was parentheses, so I distributed. The next thing I did is I combined the like terms. That was that yellow step because I had a 4x and a negative 1x, so I combined them together to get the 3x. I rewrote everything else in the problem that I didn't touch. Then the next thing that you're going to notice is I'm on to the adding and subtracting step. So I subtracted 18, rewrote everything else, and then I got rid of the 3. So I divided both sides by 3 to come up with my answer. All right, I'm going to start over, and this is our last one that we're going to do together. But then I'm going to have you guys try out one on your own, stop, and then check and see if you got the answer correct. Okay, so here we go. Don't worry that there's a fraction because you got those calculators in front of you, right? All right, I'm going to draw that line. Okay, so don't call me after midnight. All right, so distributive property. Yep, I got parentheses. So I'm going to distribute the 1/3 to the x and to the 6. So I'm going to get 1/3 x plus, well, a third of 6. That's going to give me 2, and that equals 11. So I distributed. Okay, now to combine like terms, remember that means there has to be something on the same side that has to be the same. So the 1/3 x plus 2, I don't have any x's that are the same there. I don't have any constants that are the same there. So I don't have any like terms, and the 11's hanging out by itself. So we actually don't have that step in this problem. So that's good. And I don't have any variables on the other side. So that one's gone. All right, so I'm on here to the step where you have to add or subtract. So I'm pretty used to this one. So if I see in the problem, I see a plus sign with a 2. So I'm going to subtract 2 to both sides. So I'm going to drop down my 1/3 x. I'm going to drop down my equal sign, and I have 11 minus 2, which is going to give me 9. All right, now I did that step. Okay, now I'm on to multiplying or dividing. So I gotta get rid of that 1/3 that's with my x. So I could say divide by 1/3 to both sides. The better answer would be saying multiply by your reciprocal, which is 3/1. So I can do that in my head. Either way will work. It does not matter. So you can say divide by 1/3, or you can say multiply by 3/1. Does not matter. But your answer, whatever way you do it, is still going to be x equals 27. Okay. And you can check to see if that one is going to be right, right? If you go up here, your unknown plus 6, so 27 plus 6 is going to give me 33. If I take a third of that, that's going to give me 11. So I found the right answer. All right. So next thing you're going to do, there's a couple on your own questions, and I left this little checklist for you as well. Okay. I want you to try these out and see if you can get the correct answers. Okay. I am also going to explain step by step how you do each one of these before you would move on to the next activity. All right, so if you guys take a look at this one, I see parentheses in this problem. So we're definitely starting at the top of our checklist. Okay, so for distributive property, got to be careful on this one because I see that little minus 2 there. So that means you're actually distributing a negative 2 to both the 3x and the negative 9. So I'm going to rewrite the x, and it's negative 2 times 3x, Or if you wanted to change a sign and add a line, that would be plus negative 2, okay? So negative 2 times 3x would give me negative 6x, and then negative 2 times negative 9 would give me plus 18, and then that's going to equal negative 7. Okay, so I did the distributive property. All right, now on this problem, I can see that I have some x's that are on the same side. I have a 1x and I have a negative 6x. So I have to do some like terms in this problem. So 1 minus 6, or 1x minus 6x, is going to give me negative 5x. I'm going to drop down the plus 18. I'm going to write down the equal sign, and I'm going to equal that to negative 7. You can see throughout this whole lesson, we didn't have a variable on both sides, so we don't have to worry about that. All right, we're moving on. We're going to subtract 18 to both sides. So we're going to get negative 5x equals negative 25. And then your last step, you're going to divide both sides by negative 5 to come up with x equals positive 5. So we used these steps in our checklist. So hopefully got the right answer on question number 1 on your own. Okay, let's take a look at the second one. All right, now on the second one, draw your line if you need to. I highly recommend it so you don't get lost in everything. All right, on that one, I don't see any parentheses in the problem, so I'm not going to use distributive property. Do I see any like terms? Nope. So I don't have to worry about that step or that step. If I look at the side that has the variable, I see that I have a minus 24 that I need to get rid of. So I'm going to add 24 to both sides. All right, when I add 24 to both sides, I'm going to end up with 15 equals 1/8 x. So I did that step. All right, and then my next step, I need to get rid of that 1/8 through multiplication or division. So I could say divide both sides by 1/8, or remember that means the same thing as multiplying by the reciprocal, which is multiplying by 8/1. All right, so whenever you do that, 15 times 8, which will give you 120 for your answer for x. Okay, and then my next one here, that number 3, hope I have some space here. Okay, if you take a look at question number 3, I might need to write that one down on another slide. Okay, I think I'm going to. Okay, so on question number 3, it was negative 8. I'm just copying it down on another slide. Just sit tight. Negative 8 equals 18 minus 2x. Okay. All right, so here it is. Okay, I'm going to draw my line. Okay, I know I don't have the checklist out in front of me, but I don't see any distributive property. I don't see any combining like terms. So my next move is I am going to get rid of the adding or subtracting in the problem. And in this particular problem, you're actually going to move the 18. So there's like a plus 18 hiding here that you don't really see. So you're going to subtract 18 to both sides. You're going to get negative 26 equals negative 2x. All right. Then your next move is you got to get rid of that negative 2 that's sitting with the x. So you divide both sides by negative 2. Okay, and negative 26 divided by negative 2 is going to give you positive 13. Okay, so I hope you did well on those. If you need to, throughout all of this, for any problems that you're going to practice, I highly recommend that you guys keep coming back to this checklist, the don't call me after midnight thing. Okay, so what's don't call me after midnight? It's a nice little acronym for you guys to remember how to solve equations properly. So remember, the D stands for to distribute. So if you see any parentheses in the problem, combine like terms is the C. So if you have x's that are on the same side or numbers that are on the same side that you can simplify together before you can start solving. We didn't get to anything with moving the variable around in today's lesson, so don't worry about that yet, okay? But we will eventually. Then you're going to move on to adding or subtracting, and then finally multiplying or dividing. So we're stepping up the difficulty level a little bit. However, I know that you guys can handle it. So good work today. And if you need some help, please let me know.